All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Lightning Talks for the evening, AAC in the Cloud. We're really excited to have lots of people here and watching.
All right.
And
Hi,
we also
everybody,
have,
and welcome to.
let me mute that. We also have a number of different presenters that are going to be sharing some of their thoughts and perspective with us. So this will be great. If you're not familiar with the Lightning Talks, this is something we do every year. It's a chance for those who didn't get a session or who had something they were thinking about or wanted to share, or just an interesting thought that anybody had wanted to provide. Anybody can hop in. If you still want to participate in the Lightning Talks, I will post the link in the Slack channel in track 1, and you are welcome to still submit. I can email you a link so you can join in and be able to share a thought with us as well. But we have a couple people that we're going to start with because that's who's here, and we'll just go one by one. It should be a lot of fun. We're in track 1 in the Slack channel if you have any questions or thoughts. Also, we call it Lightning Talks and Hack Night. The Hack Night is not, there's no live stream for the Hack Night, but it's in track 2. If you're a developer or a content creator and you want to meet some other people and talk about your passions or interests, hop over to track 2 in Slack and introduce yourself. I'll be joining soon over there as well. But that's kind of the story for the next little while. So we are going to start with Alyssa. Alyssa's going to be sharing some perspective with us. So I will pass the baton over to her.
Them.
Excuse me. I was going to do it right, and then I apologize. Pass the baton over to them. Thank you, Alyssa.
All right. So this is story time, but it's also a lesson about presenting with AAC. I, as a part-time AAC user, have had the opportunity to give a presentation, pretty much the same presentation twice. Same slides, similar content, 2 different audiences, once talking and once giving AAC. I think that I'm currently sharing dynamic slides for dynamics in neuroscience. Is that happening?
That's what they're seeing. Yep, Alyssa.
Great. So this is what it's about. It is, as you can see going through the slides, not my topic of tonight, a pretty heavy-duty science and math talk. Now, the story is that even though I'd already given the presentation with speech a couple months prior, it took additional several hours, more prep time than I'd spent to give it the first time, to get ready to give it with AAC. I needed to create a full script ahead of time instead of an outline and winging it. I needed to make sure that my technology would work in ways that the IT people for the department had told me was flat impossible. They were wrong. However, the solution to present both my slides and my AAC screen at the same time involved my iPad, 2 laptops, and the installation of an additional webcam driver to treat a screen share as a webcam. The lesson that I want to tell is, if you are in a position to assign presentation to students that include AAC users, make one yourself and give it yourself using AAC in front of an audience. Don't just think about doing some of the pieces, actually do it. You need to know what all of the technical issues are if you want to be able to effectively help a student in your class give such a presentation. And maybe at the university level, you can expect that a student knows how to get around them all themselves. But in elementary school and middle school and high school, you should expect to be needed for technical support. Do it yourself and see what all the issues are with their system. If you can't do the assignment with their system, how the heck do you think they can? Thank you. That is my talk.
All right, thanks, Alyssa. Appreciate the perspective on that. Next up is going to be Deanna Wagner. So I will pass the baton over to Deanna.
All right, so I guess first I should wave and say hi before I share my screen, and I'm hoping that I do a good job of switching right to the slideshow without making you guys dizzy here. I was feeling self-conscious about my session that I did on AAC in the Cloud the last couple of years, and I bowed out and then was feeling like I was missing out. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about what we've been thinking with regards to sharing our stories and the stories of ourselves, ideas of putting on somebody's communication device, my name is and my birthday is. I think one of the important things that we need to keep in mind is that it's not just about the individual, it's about them and the relationships that they're forming with other people. So the idea that everybody has a name and you can connect somebody with their name or what they do for their birthday and the routines that we do for birthdays, and that we can work on building their EQ, their SQ, know who they are as a person and what kind of mark they're going to make in this world. How are people going to remember them? And that as a group of people that we're stronger and we want to make some of our connections, not just saying what I like, but actually talking about what other people like and other people who are my friends and in my group, and prioritizing being able to tell the story about what somebody likes, being able to negotiate what we like as a group, and figuring out how we can make connections with others so that we can validate what other people are doing and saying, recognizing the interests and passions of the other people in the room, becoming more tolerant and also more empathetic, and figuring out what is fun about the multiple ways that people communicate, paying attention when something's wrong and paying attention when we need to speak up for our friends, and thinking about what kind of culture is going to be there with regards to what's going on with our multiple forms of expression and the ways that we are supporting and embracing people's communication, that when we do immersion, that we're doing a whole range of engaging opportunities and demonstrating a whole range of modes of communication, that we're allowing the people who communicate using multiple forms of expression to make their choices to do that, and to offer opportunities for people to notice and celebrate all the ways that people communicate, and thinking about how we can adjust our responses so that the ways that people are building their communication skills are meaningful. And so being able to share a story that has some information but could use more information and lots of different robustness of photographs and ideas and emojis, and thinking about what we're doing to help somebody. So this was a permission from a parent to share just what happens as we try to share a story, thinking about how we do things together and not on our own. So it's our stories and ways that we add details together. And then finally, my last soapbox is to always consider how are the people who are using AAC devices able to grab an experience, save it, and share it again later. So just wanting to encourage people to connect with the communication device developers, and to make sure that if there's something that is a story that's worth saying again, and I probably should have added in here another one that I didn't get to yet, and this was Talk Sweet figuring out ways that we can tell our stories and come back and tell our stories again, and also very importantly, not just telling our stories, but validating the stories of other people and learning how to stand up for other people when they tell a story about something that was difficult.
All right, awesome. Thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you hanging there. Thanks, Deanna. That was wonderful. And you stuck to 5 minutes. I was about to come say, hey, you're almost out of time, but you totally nailed it. So thank you for that. All right, next is going to be Donnie. So Donnie, I will pass the baton over to you, and you can take it away.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Great, thanks. Hello everyone. My name is Dolly TC Tyrone. I am a Master's of Public Health student, a gay non-binary autistic self-advocate, and a part-time AAC user. My research focuses on improving sexual and reproductive health outcomes for autistic adults and other groups of AAC users. I want to talk about how many AAC systems do not have built-in robust vocabularies around sex, gender, sexuality, and sexual and reproductive health care. Especially symbol-based systems, like Proloquo2Go, which is the symbol-based system I use. This means that AAC users who rely on high-tech symbol-based systems often have to program these terms in themselves or get someone to help them. If that someone disagrees that the user needs these terms, there will be a problem. I often hear that we shouldn't add these terms in or make default boards for them because the majority of symbol-based AAC users are children. Children still need many of these terms. Maybe they don't need as extensive a vocabulary around sexual intercourse as adults do, but everyone, regardless of age, should have terminology around genitals and body parts, gender and sexuality, and reporting abuse. Older children should also have vocabulary around puberty, and teenagers should have vocabulary around sexual intercourse and dating if that's something they want. It is not okay to limit these topics because they are not child-friendly. The world, sadly, is not child-friendly. Children who use AAC, along with all other AAC users, deserve the ability to communicate freely about their own lives. When I made boards for myself around these topics, it took me 2 days, multiple devices, and a lot of heartbreak. That's not okay. The UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities says that everyone should have equitable access to communication and sexual and reproductive health. When society limits sexual-related vocabulary for AAC users and makes it unduly hard for us to create this vocabulary, it fails to meet those parts of the convention. I want all AAC system and symbols companies to make language around sex, gender, sexuality, and sexual and reproductive healthcare part of their default boards and systems. I want symbol-based systems to come with symbols related to these topics so that users and their communication partners don't have to seek these symbols out on their own. I need all of these companies and all AAC professionals and communication partners to realize that denying this kind of terminology to AAC users makes us more vulnerable to abuse and assault and less likely to be able to communicate clearly about our bodies, identities, and experiences. For an abuser, the best victim is one who cannot tell. Some of the times where I have needed AAC the most are when I have had to talk about these topics. It would not have been okay to keep me or anyone else from talking about these things because they are adult. That is infantilizing, and it means disabled people of all ages and children of all abilities. If you are an AAC user or a communication partner looking for resources, I have found a few. The Temple University Institute on Disabilities has a needed vocabulary for socially valued adult roles webpage that includes vocabulary lists on sex, sexuality, and intimacy and reporting or telling about a crime. The University of Pretoria Center for Augmentative and Alternative Communication also has a webpage with free downloadable picture boards with vocabulary about abuse and assault in many languages. I have put links to those, along with a much longer blog post I wrote on this subject, on a webpage at the link on the wall behind me. Thank you for listening to my talk.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Donnie. Appreciate you sharing that. We'll continue on. If there are more questions, by the way, of any of these, feel free to post them in the Slack, and we can continue from here. All right. So next on our list is going to be Stephanie Coogan. So I'll pass the baton over to you, Stephanie.
Great. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Coogan. Ooh, let me see if I can get this video. Hi. So I am a speech language pathologist in a public school system, and I've been servicing students who use AAC for the past 5 years, and it's been such an amazing journey. In response to learning about and using AAC in therapy, I've had so many sleepless nights thinking about the students and their linguistic journey as well. So I ended up putting all my thoughts down on paper and writing an article that's in this month's issue of the ASHA Leader, and it's called, Is AAC a Separate Language? And I wanted to present the topic among this specialized group that so that I can receive some feedback maybe and see what your responses might be. I'd also really like to hear from some AAC users about their thoughts of AAC being a standalone language. So basically my thought process is that while we, typical language development might be quick and effortless, but learning a second language, a subsequent language is very different. You have to actively think about, practice, and engage in the process of understanding and using a second language. So when verbal language does not develop or it's not efficient enough to keep up with the thoughts of the user, AAC is embraced and the child must now actively engage in learning a different second language output system with its own organizational and motor planning patterns. So my thought was that the AAC communication process is complex. You have to receive the auditory information of what's coming in. You have to process the message, formulate and identify a response, and then the last step is to translate and execute the response using the AA system into the language of the outside community. So some bilingual speakers also experience this. They often describe thinking of their responses in their primary language and then translating it and executing it in their secondary language. You also need to, think about how every AAC system has its own way for communicators to access vocabulary. They have different and their own ways to add grammatical markers or emphasize or increase the volume of a message. They also have their own motor planning patterns. You might have eye gaze or gross motor movements or fine motor movements to access all of these linguistic components. So these are not your standard dialectical variations of a language. Instead, they are a separate system to access the major components of language: phonology, semantics, syntax, pragmatics. The average English speaker is not going to easily access the components. I even heard today, I can't remember where, but AAC is not intuitive. You have to actively engage in the learning process to learn just as you would any other separate language. So I think it's important for us to think about it in this way. I think it's important for a couple of reasons. First, I know myself when I went to learn a second language for my college credits, it was extremely difficult. And I think a lot of people have tried to learn a second language, and it will help if AAC does get a designation as a standalone language. It might help people understand what a task it is to learn this new language system. And also it may impact the amount of services that somebody receives. In New York, where I teach, a student who's learning English as a second language receives twice as much contact hours as a student who is receiving AAC services from a speech language pathologist. So I think it's an important conversation, and I would love to hear your thoughts. And that's my talk. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Stephanie. I know that's a topic that's been coming up more and more often lately. So I think it's great to hear your thoughts. And obviously we can continue in the chat if people have agree or disagree comments that they want to share. So thanks for that. Okay, so that's all the presenters. I'm going to present something now, but if there's anyone else that is interested in doing a lightning talk, I'm trying to keep an eye on the request form, but honestly, at this point, if you're interested in doing a lightning talk, feel free to just send me a message on Slack and say, hey, I want to do a lightning talk, and I can send you the links. You can hop in and share your thoughts, because we have time, so we'd love to have a couple more people if there's interest. But I'm going to go ahead and talk just a little bit in under 5 minutes about some of my passion and interest. Oh, that's not the one I want. Okay, so this, let me double check that I'm doing this right. Yep, okay. Okay, so there's a website. I am a software developer. I created Cough Drop, which is an AAC communication app. It's used by lots of people. It's cross-platform, works on Android and iPad and Windows. We try to sort of make it work for everything in every modality, and keep the price point low enough that people can use it. And it's been fun. It's been really cool. It's actually open source, because I'm a big believer in the idea of open access. And so this link you're seeing here is a website called openaac.org, which is a project that I've been working on for a couple of years. We've had a lot more interest in the last year from people joining the project. And there's a couple things that I need to get the ball rolling on soon. But OpenAAC is a bunch of initiatives that are sort of loosely coupled, or mostly around the idea of augmentative alternative communication and the fact that we have too much vendor lock-in. There's too many times where people say, you know, well, I use that because that's the app I started in, and it'd be too hard for me to switch. And this other app actually does these interesting things that I wish it would, that I want to do, but it'd be too hard to get everything over there. Or, you know, these are the symbols that my school district uses, and so that's what I'm going to use, even though I have to pay for them. And there's some issues that we have around things becoming too proprietary, and there's a concern I have there just as an openness advocate in general, which is kind of where OpenAAC came from. There's been some, you know, I've heard at the conference some additional concerns that have been issued as well that we've tried to tackle. For example, the idea around we need to make it easier for people to be able to have different voices than, you know, the 3 to 4 voices that third-party vendors provide, or the voices that are available on the device. And there can be lots of reasons for that, just so that we can match more the identities of the individuals who are using AAC. We need to have lots of activities and lessons. I've heard a couple people mention the communication workshop, which is an open licensed idea bed, basically, of core words and activities and lessons and strategies around core words that the community has put together, and we try to support and facilitate. So just lots of pieces to this, but they're all here at openaac.org, and we actually have a Slack channel as part of openaac.org. This summer, we're going to be organizing into some subgroups based on some of these initiatives, and we're going to start some projects on them. So if you have interest in participating in any of those things, if you have interest in, for example, symbology and coming up with a good flexible library of open license symbols or content For example, being able to create some open license vocabulary sets that we could use across systems. If you're interested in research and data analysis based on some large data sets that we've been collecting around AAC users, it's all anonymized, by the way. If any of these are of interest to you or other things here that you don't think that we're mentioning, please go to openaac.org and join us. It's all, it's not a for-profit thing. It's not a cough drop thing. The idea is to do this across the industry because we can all sort of raise the bar together. But that's my plug for openaac.org. I have another plug that I can do, that I'm going to do, but I want to check and see if anyone else has messaged me. It looks like we're probably running out of sessions. So the only other thing I'm going to talk about, I have a session tomorrow where I'm going to talk about a project called CovidSpeak. This is an open source project. The idea basically is it's AAC wrapped around a web conferencing solution. So the idea would be that if you had a web conference, you have a two-way conversation with somebody virtually, which we're all doing right now, right? Being able to have the AAC user participate in that conversation, or someone who is temporarily non-speaking because of sickness to be able to contribute and participate instead of just being a passive participant in a video call can provide a lot of value. So that is available at covidspeak.org if you want to learn more about that. I'll be talking about it in a session tomorrow as well, but those are my plugs. And again, I just want to say here at the end, thank you to everybody who's been making this conference happen. We have volunteer presenters, we have volunteer moderators, we have volunteer attendees. Everything that we've been able to do here is because we have engagement and participation from the people around us who want to help get this knowledge of AAC out to the world. So thank you. Thank you to all of our presenters for being willing to put your videos online so that people can watch them after the fact, and we can be able to spread the knowledge as it's needed. Thank you to everybody who's been involved, and I'm looking forward to another great day of conference time tomorrow. We should have a lot of fun, and Jane Farrell's going to give us a great keynote first thing in the morning, so definitely stay tuned for that. Also, one last thing. We always do coloring pages, so I'm going to post those later tonight, so you can start on tonight if you want to. If you color the page and post it to the AAC in the Cloud Facebook page, anytime tomorrow, we'll add you in a drawing to be able to win a prize. But there we go. Thanks everybody for coming tonight to the Lightning Talks. Appreciate those who participated. We had some great thoughts and things to chew on. So thanks everybody, and we hope you all have a great evening.